In this video, I'll get some daylight going in my scene. You can continue with your max scene from the previous lessons, or open up 43 Jungle Daylight Start. What we've got here then is our terrain, our rocks, and our plants painted around, and I'm showing the texture on the lilies here. I'm ready to get some daylight in, and to do this I'll go onto the Create tab in the Command panel, and over to the Systems button. Systems for us are systems in 3ds Max that are linked objects meant to work together. For example, bones that we put in a character, or a biped, a ready-made bipedal rig for characters, are systems. I'll choose daylight, and 3ds Max asks, because we've enabled Mental Ray, would you like to put the Mental Ray photographic exposure control in? And we'll click yes, because it's an important step in seeing our daylight. Otherwise the scene would be blown out, far too overlit. Now for my daylight, I'll click and drag and make the compass first, then release and drag up to make that daylight. In this case, what we're seeing is a compass that defines where north is, and the daylight assembly head up here. I'll right click to stop creating so I don't make extra daylight, and jump over to the modifier panel. What it says right now is that this daylight is standard, that is, it's not Mental Ray. I'll drop down under Sunlight, and instead of Standard, choose Mental Ray Sun. As you can see here, we have all kinds of different options available for sun and sky, depending on our rendering method. My general guideline is if you go Mental Ray, go all the way Mental Ray. Use Mental Ray lights, Mental Ray materials, and render with Mental Ray to get the best results. I'll change the skylight here to Mental Ray Sky, and 3ds Max will ask, do we want to put a Mental Ray physical sky environment map in? And we'll say yes, because that'll give us our wraparound sky we'll see. Once I click yes, I've got my daylight in place. Now what I can do is reorient it. At the moment, it's not terribly exciting, and I can tell this from the angle. I'll jump over to the Motion tab, the wheel here, and move the daylight around. What we want to think of with our daylight, and we have a very good ability to do, is where is it and when is it? As we can see right now, it's noon on June 21st. That's the summer solstice, the highest, straightest point of the sun in the sky, although it looks slightly angled. And the reason for this, if we click on the Get Location button, is that the daylight starts out in San Francisco, which is as close to San Rafael, California as we can get, where Autodesk is headquartered. We can change this around. We can choose not only North America, but other countries. For example, I can put my daylight down in Guadalajara in Mexico, or even farther south. Here I am in Belize, for example. I can even choose other continents. I think I'll go over to South America and put this down in the rainforest. Here I am in Guyana, and down even into Brazil. There's Salvador, and right in the middle, here's Brasilia, the capital. We'll say that this is the quality of light we want, although we're not going to be in the city, we'll be outside of it. We can also uncheck nearest big city if we'd like, and simply place that daylight. Here I am deep in the Amazon, and I'll click OK. Now I can think about the time and month. It's still noon, but in June that daylight is definitely starting to lean over. Because we're now in the southern hemisphere, the seasons are flipped around. I'll take this and swing it more over towards, let's say, November, and bring it down into the morning. Here's 9 in the morning in November, and we've got a good long angle on this daylight. What I'm looking for in daylight is this, that the daylight is coming diagonally across the scene and giving us some real power out of our shadows. That if I view it in a top view by hitting T and zooming out, the daylight is angling across and not at a 45-degree angle. If I go into a front view and press Z to zoom extents, I see the same thing. The daylight is angling across the scene, and again, not at a 45-degree angle. This way, any adjacent surfaces, such as those on my rocks, will show clearly differently lit, and I'm getting long reach out of the shadows and sunbeams in my scene. Now, if somebody says give me a rendering in a particular time and day, you can put that in. But typically, if I'm not given that, I'll choose to have that daylight be dramatic. Finally, if we need to swing around the north direction, we can. At the moment, in a top view, North is straight up. Here, as we can see in a wireframe, or just looking at where west and east and south are, north is straight up in the scene. Using the north direction in the daylight, we can swing that compass around if we need, and we can see those shadows changing. I'll pull mine around slightly, and put east just a little off to the side, let's say. I can also play with the orbital scale, which really depends on the size of the model. For now we're doing just fine, but if we'd like to crank out that assembly head, we can. If we need an exact latitude and longitude, we can, and even daylight savings time. If you'd like to go further in this, you can bring in weather data, which is available online, and that lets you bring in cloud models to bring into our daylight. For now, though, we'll deal in a clear sky and position it where we like it. I'll go into my scene, orbiting down, picking one of my plants and hitting P for perspective and Z to zoom extents. Then I'll orbit down in my scene here and try a quick render to see what I've got. What we're seeing here in the render and mental ray is a two-step render. There's first the final gather, that crystalline look, bouncing and regathering of indirect light, and then the render. It's neat, although my materials could use a little work. My shadows are fairly dark, and they're not spreading too much, but it's definitely nice to see this jungle in some daylight. That blue sky there is that mental ray sky. It's a wraparound blue gradient sky shader that contributes the bounce of light in the air as part of our daylight system, and it's linked into the sun. We're ready to get things tuned up, and we'll start to look at how to get the shadows softer, the exposure a little more open so it's not so black in the render, and to get a little more haze in the scene. We'll do this in the next videos, but starting out with the daylight is key.